moonlight barely lit the frozen ground as Marcus Johnson pushed his shovel into the hard November soil. The $300 in his pocket was the last bit of money he would earn before losing the farm that had been his life's work. For 40 years, he had grown crops on the same land, but years of drought and crushing debt had left him with no choice but to take this job. It wasn't farming, it was digging. In the back of the pickup lay a figure wrapped in white sheets. The man who hired him, Richard Holloway, the wealthiest land developer in the county, had given him simple instructions. No questions, no paperwork, no witnesses, just dig deep and cover it well. Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow and pressed on, the pain in his knees reminding him of his 58 years. That's when he heard it. At first it was so faint he thought it was the wind. A sound, soft but real. A moan. His body froze. Shaking, he stepped closer to the truck. With trembling hands, he pulled back the edge of the sheet. What he saw made the shovel slip from his grip. The woman's lips were pale, her skin cold, and then her eyes fluttered open. Marcus staggered back, whispering, "You're alive." Her gaze was clouded with fear, her lips moving in a silent cry. Before he could react, headlights swept across the field. Holloway's car was returning sooner than expected. Marcus quickly pulled the sheet back over her and positioned himself in front of the truck. "Are you finished?" Holloway asked, stepping out in his immaculate suit, his voice sharp and impatient. "Almost," Marcus replied, forcing calm into his tone. "Good," Holloway said, checking his watch. "Bury her deep. This land will be worth millions in 6 months, and I don't want any surprises." His eyes were cold, his words even colder. Marcus nodded, praying the woman stayed silent. Then Holloway leaned closer. "If anyone asks about Eliza Walsh, you've never seen her." The name hit Marcus like a stone. Eliza Walsh, the lawyer who had been exposing Holloway's projects for destroying protected land. Just 2 days earlier, her death had been reported in the papers. "Understood," Marcus muttered, gripping the shovel so tightly it hurt. As soon as Holloway drove away, Marcus rushed back to the pickup. The woman trembled, clutching something around her neck, a small flash drive. He lifted her carefully into his own truck. She was as light as paper, her neck marked by dark bruises revealed by the merciless moonlight. Marcus looked at the open grave, then at the woman beside him. He hadn't just refused to bury her alive, he had uncovered something much darker, a conspiracy that could cost both of them their lives. Starting the engine, Marcus whispered, "You're safe now. I won't let them finish what they started." Holloway believed men like Marcus were invisible, replaceable, but Marcus Johnson still had something the powerful developer could never buy, a conscience that refused to be silenced. And tonight, that would change everything. Jasmine, Marcus's 29-year-old niece and a nurse who had lived with him since childhood, was still awake in the kitchen. "Uncle Marcus, what?" Her words froze the moment she saw the unconscious woman in his arms. "She was about to be buried alive," Marcus said grimly. "It's her, the lawyer from the paper. Holloway tried to finish her." Jasmine asked nothing more. In her eyes, Marcus saw the same sharp instinct that had carried generations of their family through impossible odds. Within moments, she was examining the woman with clinical precision. "Poison," Jasmine murmured. "Heavy sedatives, probably mixed with something else. And those marks on her neck." She shook her head. Someone wanted to make absolutely sure. "Will she make it?" Marcus asked. "She needs a hospital, but we can't take her there. Holloway has people everywhere. If she shows up alive, we'll all be signing our own death warrants." Marcus nodded grimly. While Jasmine prepared a charcoal solution and improvised treatment, he studied the small flash drive that had slipped from the woman's sheet. "We'll need a computer," he muttered. "Nate can help." Nathaniel Turner, the town librarian, and Marcus's old comrade from the civil rights days, was the first in the county to digitize property records. If anyone could unlock this drive without leaving a trace, it was him. The next morning, while Jasmine cared for the woman, Eliza Walsh, Marcus drove to the municipal library. On the radio, the local news announced that the search for Eliza Walsh had been called off, citing conclusive evidence she had left the city voluntarily. Marcus's knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. Holloway was already rewriting the story. Inside the library, Nate was shelving books. At 63, hunched and quiet, he looked harmless, exactly why people underestimated him. "I need a favor," Marcus whispered, sliding the flash drive across the desk. "It's life and death." 20 minutes later, locked in the file room, Nate pulled up the contents. His face went pale. "My God," he whispered, "she had everything." The screen revealed photos, reports, and emails proving Holloway had poisoned protected land with toxic waste, bribed inspectors, and threatened farmers. Among the documents, Marcus spotted his own name on a list marked Priority Acquisitions. "He never planned on letting me keep my land," Marcus said, cold fury rising. "The droughts that destroyed your crops weren't natural," Nate added, pointing to evidence of illegal water diversions. When Marcus returned to the farm, Eliza was awake, though weak. Her eyes, once hazy, now burned with determination. "You saved me," she whispered. "I just did what was right," Marcus replied. "You know what he's planning for your land, don't you?" "I do now," Marcus said quietly. "But what can we do? He owns the police, the press, the courts." "That's why I gathered this evidence," Eliza said, her voice steady. "I was preparing to send it to the FBI. He found out before I could finish. The night I was attacked, I just sent an email to the federal office in Memphis." Marcus's hope flickered, then dimmed. If they think you're gone, they'll ignore it. Just then, Marcus's phone rang. He set it on speaker. "Johnson," Holloway's voice boomed. "We need to talk about your property. I'm prepared to be generous, considering your recent service." Marcus exchanged a glance with Eliza, then answered calmly. "Of course, Mr. Holloway. Come to my office tomorrow at 10. I have a deal that will solve all your financial problems." When the line went dead, Eliza's eyes widened in alarm. "You can't go!" For the first time in days, Marcus allowed himself a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "He thinks I'm just a desperate old farmer, the kind of man who buries things without asking questions. But he has no idea." Jasmine entered with tea. "What are you planning, Uncle?" Marcus looked at his calloused hands. "Something I've learned after 40 years on this land. Sometimes you have to let the weeds grow, just long enough to pull them out by the roots." That night, while Eliza rested, Marcus, Jasmine, and Nate gathered at the kitchen table. Spread across it were the documents from the flash drive, maps of City Hall, and something Nate had brought, a small, nearly invisible recorder. "Holloway thinks money can silence me," Marcus said quietly. His eyes hardened. "But what he doesn't know is that I'm not his problem to solve. I'm the solution to his." As their plan took shape in that small farmhouse kitchen, one truth bound them together. Richard Holloway had chosen the wrong man. He thought Marcus Johnson, a farmer who had endured drought, floods, prejudice, and poverty, was someone he could buy or use. But Holloway had mistaken quiet strength for weakness, and that mistake was about to destroy him. In the marble-lined office of Holloway Development, the businessman welcomed Marcus with a polished smile. The walls gleamed with awards, certificates, and oil paintings, monuments to power. Beyond the panoramic window stretched the land that would soon become luxury condos, the same land Holloway had stolen from its rightful owners. "Johnson," Holloway said smoothly, gesturing toward a chair, "punctual as always. Coffee?" "No, thank you, sir," Marcus replied, lowering his eyes as he sat. The tiny recorder Nate had sewn into the button of his shirt clicked silently, capturing every word. "I trust you slept well after our work," Holloway smirked. Marcus kept his tone steady. "I did exactly what you asked." "Excellent. Then let's talk business." Holloway slid a folder across the desk. "Your property is valued at $300,000, but with your debts, It's worth far less. I'll be generous. 150,000 to settle everything. Consider it payment for your loyalty. Marcus studied the document. It seems fair, given the circumstances. The circumstances? Holloway leaned in. The drought that ruined my farm. 3 years, only my land destroyed. Strange, isn't it? For the first time, Holloway's smile faltered. Nature is unpredictable, not when it's manipulated. Marcus pulled out an aerial photo, evidence from Eliza's flash drive. Illegal water diversion. My land dries out while your condominiums boast artificial lakes. Holloway's expression hardened. Baseless claims won't change your reality, Johnson. Take the deal, or the bank takes everything in 30 days. And who knows, other problems might appear for a man like you, problems that disappear quietly. Marcus didn't blink. Like Miss Walsh, a heavy silence filled the room. Holloway's eyes grew colder. The police already confirmed she left town voluntarily. Tragic, but case closed. He uncorked an expensive bottle of whiskey, pouring himself a glass. Take the money, Johnson. Walk away. Keep digging, and you'll end up like her. Marcus's voice was calm, almost casual. What if I told you I had proof? The glass stopped midair. What proof? The flash drive she carried. Evidence of everything, your waste-dumping, bribery, falsified reports. Holloway's hand trembled. You're bluffing. I thought she was bluffing too, Marcus said evenly, until I found the drive in the back of my truck. You took it from... Holloway stopped himself, realizing his slip. Marcus gave a faint smile. I never said she was alive, Mr. Holloway. The color drained from Holloway's face. With a sudden motion, he yanked open his desk drawer and pulled out a pistol, pointing it across the desk. Where is it? His voice shook. Where's the drive? In a safe place, Marcus said, unflinching, with Eliza Walsh. Impossible, Holloway barked. I watched her after the poison took hold. I checked her pulse. You didn't check well enough, Marcus said coldly. She lived, and now she's eager to share her story with the FBI. At that exact moment, the office door swung open. 3 figures entered: the county sheriff, a man in a dark suit flashing a badge, and Jasmine, holding an open laptop. Richard Holloway, the man in the suit announced firmly. Special Agent Rodriguez, FBI. You're under arrest for attempted murder, environmental crimes, and obstruction of justice. Ridiculous! Holloway roared, still gripping the gun. Sheriff, arrest him! He's trespassing, threatening me! But the sheriff, usually in Holloway's pocket, didn't move. His face was stone. Drop the weapon, Richard, the sheriff said flatly. It's over. Drop the gun, Richard. Jasmine turned the laptop around. On the screen was a live feed. Every word of their meeting broadcast in real time. Confessions, threats, the entire exchange captured by Nate's device and sent directly to the FBI, the state prosecutor, and even the governor's office. This is our second broadcast, Jasmine said firmly. The first was last night, when you sent men to burn down our house and make sure Eliza never spoke again. They're already in custody. The room shifted. Nate entered, followed by reporters and a television crew, and behind them, flanked by federal agents, stood Eliza Walsh herself, pale but unbroken. You tried to bury me, Richard, she said, her voice carrying across the office. But you forgot that some seeds grow stronger underground. Holloway's composure cracked. Cornered, he turned his gun toward Eliza, only to be disarmed in one swift move by the sheriff. Moments later, agents had him in handcuffs. How? Holloway muttered bitterly as they dragged him away. You're just a broke farmer. How did you? Marcus's eyes were calm. You made 2 mistakes. First, you thought you could buy me. Second, and worse, you asked me to dig that grave. Eliza added quietly, and you chose the wrong man to bury me. The office erupted in flashes of cameras and the voices of reporters. Marcus didn't smile, didn't gloat. He simply stood with the quiet dignity of a man who had carried the truth on his shoulders and lived to see it rise again. 6 months later, spring sunlight bathed the fields. Marcus's farm, once lifeless from drought, now thrived with green rows of crops. The illegal diversions were gone. Water flowed back to its rightful course. On the porch of the newly renovated farmhouse, Marcus and Eliza shared breakfast, watching workers install solar panels. The project was part of a sustainable agriculture initiative, funded by the compensation Marcus won in court. "It's amazing how everything has changed," Eliza said softly. Though scars of her ordeal remained unseen, her strength had only deepened. "You turned an attempt to end a life into a new beginning." Marcus smiled, lines of hardship softened by peace. "It wasn't just for me. Other farms are healing too. Families are getting their land back." On the table lay the day's newspaper, Holloway sentenced, 230 years. The photo showed an unrecognizable man, his arrogance gone, replaced by defeat. "He tried to silence me," Eliza whispered, her hand brushing her healed neck, "but in the end, he silenced himself." Jasmine stepped onto the porch with her medical bag. After saving Eliza's life, she'd earned a grant to specialize in environmental medicine, fighting the very kind of harm Holloway had caused. "I've got a surprise," she said, handing Marcus an envelope. "The university approved the internship program for young farmers. They'll start here next month." Marcus opened the letter carefully. It was official. The farm would become a training ground for the next generation, teaching sustainable practices to youth from struggling communities. That afternoon, a van pulled up. Nate stepped out with a group of filmmakers and journalists, carrying banners for their upcoming documentary, Stolen Land, Reclaimed Land. It would premiere at the Environmental Film Festival, telling the story of a farmer, a lawyer, and a niece who turned the tables on one of the most powerful men in the state. Marcus stood at the edge of his fields, the wind tugging at his worn flannel. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about debt or drought. He was thinking about legacy, because sometimes justice doesn't come from the halls of power. Sometimes it grows quietly, like a seed in stubborn soil, waiting for its moment to break through. "Marcus," Nate called one morning. "They want some final shots for the documentary. The story's gone national." Walking the farm with the film crew, Marcus pointed out the restored irrigation lines, the soil healing from years of contamination, the fields slowly returning to life. His voice was calm, but now carried authority, the voice of a man who had transformed survival into legacy. "What about the other Holloway executives?" a reporter asked. "Most cut deals with prosecutors," Eliza explained, joining them. "Their projects are suspended. The wetlands will remain protected." Weeks earlier, the county courthouse had unveiled a plaque honoring Marcus and Eliza's role in exposing corruption. The old sheriff, forced into retirement after his ties to Holloway were uncovered, was replaced by reform-minded leadership. That night, at dinner with Nate's family, Marcus set down a letter. "It's from Holloway." Silence. Then Nate asked, "What does he want?" "He asked for forgiveness," Marcus said quietly. "He lost everything. Company, family, reputation. Wanted to know if I believed in redemption." "And do you?" Jasmine pressed. Marcus thought long before answering. "I believe in justice. Sometimes justice allows a chance to change." I told him he has 30 years to think about it. The following week, Marcus stood at the local high school facing a room of young people, children of farmers, mill workers, families who had lived under Holloway's shadow. He didn't talk about revenge. He spoke of resilience. "When they hired me to dig that grave," he said, "they thought I was just a desperate man, someone expendable, someone who wouldn't ask questions. Their mistake was forgetting that people who work the land know their true worth. We know the difference between what can be bought and what is priceless." The hall erupted in applause. Among the audience were former Holloway employees, now working in environmental restoration, finally finding purpose beyond profit. 6 months later, the first class of the Young Farmers program graduated at Marcus's farm. As part of the celebration, they planted oak trees along the entrance. "Why oaks?" a teenager asked. "They grow so slowly." Marcus touched one of the fragile sprouts. "Because not everything is for us. Some things are for those who come after. Holloway wanted everything fast, everything for himself. But the land teaches patience. From the porch, Eliza watched, her phone buzzing with another request to fight destructive development. Marcus asked her later, "Are you sure you want to keep going? After everything?" She took his hand. "I was buried once. I learned that some things grow stronger when you try to bury them." In the town cemetery, the shallow dip where Marcus once began digging remained untouched, covered in wildflowers. On the anniversary of that night, Marcus and Eliza stood there together. "You know what I've learned?" Marcus said, watching the flowers sway. "Sometimes, when someone tries to bury you, they're actually planting a seed. Holloway thought he was using me to hide his crime. In the end, he planted the evidence of his own downfall." The Johnson farm, now renamed Rebirth Farm, had become a symbol of justice, renewal, and dignity, a documentary, an educational program, and reclaimed land. The legacy of one man who refused to dig a grave for the secrets of the powerful would echo for generations.